The Trump administration can't get its facts straight. Did Tom Homan keep the $50,000 bribe he accepted before he became Donald Trump's border czar, the one that's presumably on videotape because it was an FBI sting operation? Did he give back the money? Was there money? If you listen to Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary, she says, get your facts straight. He didn't take a bribe. But if you listen to Tom Homan, in his own words, he took the bribe, but he was allowed to because he's making a lot less money now in the government than he was before. Something like that. We cover it all on the Legal AF podcast, and here's a clip. All right, let's move on to another scandal du jour. It's like it's another day. It must be a scandal in the Department of Justice and the FBI. This one involving a cover-up and a sting operation bribe scheme, all wrapped into one. They're getting the whole gang back together again. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, come on down and bring with you Tom Homan, the border czar. You know, the guy that just heartlessly goes on all sorts of television shows and says, I think children in cages are okay. I think U.S. children, if they're born to migrants, they should be deported too. Their parents made a mistake and we're going to fix it. You know, that guy. We're going to get rid of 11 million people over 2 years and see what happens to our economy. Well, it turns out that in September of 2024, under the Biden administration and a really competent FBI director named Christopher Wray, they were working on another target, not named Tom Homan, about public corruption. And during their investigation, that target, on a case that was pending in the Western District of Texas, at least from a grand jury standpoint, they said, classic whataboutism. Me, what about Tom Homan? And they said, what do you mean Tom Homan? The guy that's, going to be tapped to be the border czar for Donald Trump? Yeah, what about him? He's taken money in order to direct federal contracts if he gets back into office. They're like, So after corroborating that information, they decided to run a sting operation and to see if that was true. So, and this sting operation doesn't have a lot of moving parts. This is relatively simple. This is as old as time. They made a meeting. They set a lunch in a reasonably well-known chain, and the two, what Homan thought were federal contractors, showed up, and at some point, literally a $50,000 bag of cash from the restaurant itself was pushed across the table to Tom Homan and caught on video, because you don't do a sting without audio and video, in which they got him to say a version, according to those who have seen it, that if he gets into it, when and if he gets back into office, he will help direct federal contracts to the people that just paid him the money. But then he tried to money launder it by saying, but I'm going to keep it in escrow or in my bank account until I make sure I get in, and then I won't spend it until the end, as if that made a difference. Now, that $50,000, just to follow the money here, that's taxpayer dollars. That was taken out of the Treasury and the funds of the FBI to use as bait, right? To use as the honeypot. And Homan took it and kept it, apparently. Now, the reason they didn't arrest him right there is because they wanted him to get back into office. And once he got back into office and directed one of the contracts, boom, they were ready to bounce. Of course, they ran out of time. That was September, and they didn't realize that Donald Trump was going to get rid of everybody in the FBI and the Department of Justice. Now, further reporting, Karen, is that when the Department of Justice and Emil Bovee, the guy that's now a Judge Bovee on the Third Circuit, took a look at the file. Oh, Tom Homan, a bag of cash, weaponization. We need to close this investigation. Not get the cash back, just close the investigation. So we now have the reporting that there is a video of the sting operation. And before we go to Karen, Tom Homan went on, Newsmax Propaganda Center and gave a statement. Now watch his statement here. Watch how quickly he gets out from under the question of where's the money, Tom, and try to defend himself on the $50,000. Let's roll the clip.
What is the story with this, and where did it come from?
Well, look, as the Justice Department said, I did nothing criminal, I did nothing illegal, I did nothing wrong. And this is a series of hits against me since the beginning of the year. There's been hit pieces about every week. There was a hit piece on my security detail saying I had 31 security detail. I'm wasting millions of dollars. I had about a quarter of that. I think I had 8 security detail at the time. I had a 4-car caravan. I had 2. Another story about I'm helping certain companies with their contracts. Here's what people need to understand. Day one of the administration, when President Trump asked me to come back and we entered on duty, I met with ethics attorneys, and by law, you're supposed to recuse yourself from any company you had affiliations with before. But I took it a step further. I recused myself from all federal contracts. I won't have any decision making in any federal contract, but people, including this recent case, people are saying, I'm going to line the pockets of people. I signed that declaration. I do not make decisions in any federal contracts. And just so people know, I make about 18% of what I've made in my company to come back and serve my nation. So my family's took a sacrifice. I've taken a sacrifice. I'm back here doing the right thing. The hit pieces keep coming, but I know who's chumming the water. I know who keeps throwing this information out, and the media jumps all over it. And they're going to see some legal actions real soon. I'm working with the legal team. I'm done with it. They can attack me all they want, but we're going to take action.
Where's the 50,000, Tom? And so now the House Democrats, led by Jamie Raskin, have demanded that the Department of Justice and the FBI turn over the video. Democracy Forward is with us over on Legal AF. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing Sky Perryman tomorrow about their FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request about where's the videotape and why hasn't it been turned over? You notice in there, Karen, he never denies taking the money. He just has all sorts of excuses as to why. And the fact, let me just leave it on this. The fact that he signed whatever he signed, that doesn't matter. There's new reporting, for instance, that one of Donald Trump's, Steve Witkoff, who serves as our special envoy, but is also in crypto businesses and other businesses with Trump and the Trump family, that he was on both sides of a UAE deal to make sure that they got AI chips in return for a major investment in the Trump cryptocurrency business. He's not technically in charge of that procurement. He could have signed a similar document as Tom Homan. It doesn't mean he's not whispering in the right party's ears and lobbying for it, which is what the reporting is, that he was lobbying for it behind closed doors, even though he's not technically in the chain for procurement or technically in the chain for that decision making. It doesn't mean he doesn't exert tremendous influence, just like Tom Homan does. Karen, what do you think about all this? And what do you think the Democrats should do about it as this new scandal rocks the Trump administration?
Yeah, well, first of all, every time I see a new scandal like this, I'm like, still, where's the Epstein files? You know, it's like so much of this is like a distraction from Epstein. So I think we have to mention it every single day until all of that comes out. But, look, I look at this, and obviously when you read what the bribery statute is and you look and see if this is in fact illegal, there are questions, right? We haven't heard the tape. We haven't seen the tape. We don't know what was said, but the FBI is pretty good. They know what to say, right? They set these up. They speak to lawyers. They speak to prosecutors. They try to make sure that before they do anything, they know exactly how to do this. They do a bag of cash, because that way, like because he could come out and say, look, I was a lobbyist, right? When I left from the first administration, I was a lobbyist, or I was whatever his, he's going to say he was doing. I can take money to make introductions and that sort of thing. But when you're taking a bag of cash, right, that just looks bad. It smells bad. And the question is, right, was he considered someone who's about to be a public official? Because that is what would be required, I think, to be part of, to be prosecuted here. And we'll see if it fits the law, but it just looks bad. And that statement, as you said, when he got on the air, first of all, he kept the money, right? This wasn't a legitimate business dealing. This was an FBI agent, right, giving taxpayer dollars as sting money. So he's keeping taxpayer dollars, number one. Number two, the other thing that was weird about that statement is he's basically was almost like saying, I took a pay cut. I'm making 18% of what I used to make. Almost like he's saying, I deserve to keep that money. Like, what does that mean, right? Why was that part of that? I don't know. That just seemed really weird to me. So I think the Democrats, if they can get a hearing and an investigation into this, I think they should. The American people deserve to know. They deserve to know exactly what this was. But we also know that Trump and his administration, they don't think bribery is a big deal. I mean, look at the Mayor Adams case, right? You have the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who was under indictment for accepting bribes. And that case was just dismissed, completely dismissed. And that's the thing. Prosecutors have discretion to dismiss cases. And it's pretty easy to dismiss a case. Much harder to indict a case if, that has no facts, like Jim Comey and the others. That will be interesting. That's a harder thing to do. You've got to find evidence and facts and convince a jury. But to dismiss a case, they can dismiss pretty much whatever they want. They have that discretion. And they don't think bribery apparently is a really serious crime.
Right. I saw some commentators on some former prosecutors like you on MSNBC. They were like, I don't know, that's a little thing that used to be called bribery. And I don't know why it's, you get Carolyn Levitt during her presser saying, get your facts straight. What are the facts? There's a video of him taking cash. I don't really understand. And it would be entrapment. Well, which is it, Carolyn? Is it he took the money, he didn't take the money because there was no sting operation, or he took the money because there was entrapment? They just use, it's like word salad they always accuse Kamala Harris of. It's just kitchen magnet poetry. It's just, they are words. I'm not sure she knows what they mean or what their legal import is, but they just throw out all of this stuff, hoping that the attention span of the media in the room will move on. And sometimes they're right about it, and sometimes, of course, they aren't. And we are dogged, sort of laser focused on these issues, and we won't let it die. And that's why they hate Midas Touch and they hate Legal AF. I'm sure they didn't like the fact that Legal AF's video showed up in the hearing room when Kash Patel was being cross-examined, because they count on mainstream media and its attention deficit disorder, because they're on deadline, they're on timeline, there's micro news cycles, every minute, every half an hour, they have to change the content, they have to change the website and the app. And that plays into the hands of Donald Trump, who's always hoping to grab the news cycle, hope the media forgets about it or won't find it interesting. Like on mainstream media, like 100th story about Epstein may be met, especially by the editors or the managing editors of that entity, with really, is that really still a news story that people care about? Is that going to sell? Whatever. Over here with us, it's like this. We have to focus on this. I bump into people all the time that tell me, "Don't let up about the Epstein scandal or now the Homan scandal." Welcome back. The podcast is on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. And then we got commercial-free versions that end up on Legal AF Substack. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so you don't have to. And then if you want to help that podcast, you can hit the subscribe button on Midas Touch, hit the subscribe button on Legal AF YouTube, listen to our audio versions. That's what's keeping us in the top 50 of all podcasts for the last 5 years. Related to news, and watch us on the YouTube channel for Midas Touch, and then again on the Legal AF Substack. That helps us stay in the top 40 or 50 of all podcasts on YouTube, all because of you. We're building this channel, this network, this community together, which is what we need to do. Thank you for being here. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.